Welcome to this edition of GoVote Omaha, presented by the League of Women Voters of Greater Omaha. I'm Karina Hernandez, Director at Large with the League of Omaha, and your host for today's program. Today, we will be discussing Legislative Bill 20 with our guest from Civic Nebraska. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization and does not endorse political candidates or parties. The League does, however, take positions on issues. Our purpose is to empower voters and defend democracy. GoVote Omaha primarily focuses on policy issues, and as a result of our discussions, we hope you will feel ready to make informed decisions at election time. Joining us today is Voting Rights Program Manager Mike Forsythe. Thank you so much for being here, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Karina.
Of course, you're the expert there at Civic Nebraska. So can you just take us through first, what is LB20?
Legislative Bill 20 is sponsored. It's a bill sponsored by Senator Justin Wayne, and this would restore voting rights to individuals with a felony conviction. Right now, there's a statute that requires individuals with felony convictions to wait an additional 2 years after they've completed their sentence, including parole or probation, before they're eligible to register, plus another 2 years before they're eligible to register to vote. And so LB20 would remove the 2 year waiting period.
Right, that whole 2 years off papers before you can vote again.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. And can you take us a little bit through that history?
Actually, it started back in 1870. In February of 1870, the U.S. Ratified the Constitution with the 15th Amendment, which granted African American men the right to vote. Shortly after that, maybe a period of 3 or 4 years went by, and then Nebraska held its own constitutional convention. And immediately following the ratification of the 15th Amendment, when Nebraska became a state in 1867, the Constitution was adopted in 1875. There was a provision in the Nebraska State Constitution for lifetime disenfranchisement for individuals with felony convictions. And this was designed and really implemented to keep African Americans from voting in Nebraska. And that went unchanged for 130 years until 2005, when the state legislature established our current policy. In 2005, it went from a lifetime ban down to the 2 year waiting period. Mm-hmm. And lawmakers at that time, the sponsors and introducers of that bill, were very transparent about the fact that the 2 year waiting period was nothing more than a political compromise that was made between senators to get the bill out of committee. And it had the 2 year waiting period has no substantial policy value whatsoever. It's just, it could have been 2 years, it could have been 5 years, it could have been 7, it could have been anything, but they landed on 2 years. And I think that's really important to remember, an important piece to remember as we take a look at this issue now.
Right. So they just landed on 2, and that's what they kept. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So LB20 would then hope to remove that 2 year.
Right. So the way it is right now, if a person is convicted of a felony, after they serve their sentence, and then after they finish, they are discharged, they have to serve their probation or parole, and then wait an additional 2 years before they're eligible to vote. One thing that we know from Civic Nebraska, before COVID hit, we were going to a lot of reentry fairs at correctional facilities around the state. And the vast majority of the conversations that we had with people serving their sentences is that the vast majority thought that it was a lifetime ban. They didn't know because they just weren't told that they would have their voting. They could have their voting rights restored 2 years after they were off paper. They thought they could never vote again. So the people that we talked to were very a lot of times shocked and enthused, really, that they were going to be able to vote again. And they were always very appreciative when we'd also tell them that we were working to support legislation that would remove the 2-year waiting period. And that's one thing at Civic Nebraska that I'm really proud of, that we are supporting this legislation. I work with on a team, or we refer to it as team voting rights at Civic Nebraska. We're led by our voting rights director, Heather Engdahl. We have an organizer, field organizer in Omaha, Lincoln, Chicago, Yang, and then our organizer out in Greater Nebraska, who's based in Kearney, really the Tri-City areas, Kearney, Grand Island, and Hastings, Nathan Leach. And we, about a year ago, we obtained a grant from the Sherwood Foundation that actually we have some funding to organize around the issue now. And Civic Nebraska actually has supported this issue since its inception in 2017. Part of the history of felon disenfranchisement. It was Senator Wayne's freshman year at the state legislature, and he brought, I think at that time it was LB20, which it's the same bill it is today, just a different number, to remove the 2-year waiting period. The bill actually made it out of committee by a 6-1-1 vote, went through 3 rounds of debate, and was actually on Governor Ricketts' desk, and he vetoed it. And in his veto letter, Governor Ricketts stated that one of the reasons why he wouldn't sign it into law is because he thought that the 2-year waiting period was a good incentive for people that had felony convictions. Once they were out and off paper, that extra 2 years would be incentive for them to remain good citizens. When in fact, data tells us in other states that restore voting rights to people when they're discharged from prison, either as soon as they're discharged or after they finish their parole or probation, when they have their voting rights restored at that time, the recidivism rates in those states are a lot lower than we have here. And so yeah, that's another one of the things that we try to bring to light, is that it really just makes sense in a state like Nebraska, where our prisons are at like 155% capacity right now, and the overcrowding problem that we have. While we know restoring voting rights in this manner would not solve the overcrowding problem, but it would be a step in that direction, and it wouldn't cost the state a dime. And it would be free. And yeah, so those are just a couple of the reasons why we feel strongly about this. And we have supported Senator Wayne's bill every year. He brings this bill. This will be the 7th year. And since that first time when it actually made it to the governor's desk, every year since then, it just has not gotten any traction at the state legislature. I think it made it out of committee last year, but then stalled after that. But between 2017 and last year, it never even made it out of committee.
Right. So you're out there doing the work. I know that through my work with voter registration, I ran into a lot of folks as well who didn't know that they could vote after being 2 years off paper. So yeah, I have a lot of similar stories of people going years, honestly. Like, I think I heard one story of like around 50 years, and he did not know. So I think there is a lot of like misinformation as well on how long people have to wait, as well.
Yeah, it really does. Just because they're not educated on it. That's another big piece that, we were doing while we were, able to do reentry fairs. Just educating people on what their voting rights are and what they were at that time. And yeah, that's a very important piece, the education. And if LB20 should pass this year, there would still be a lot more work to be done as far as the education piece, because just because the bill passes, a lot of people are still going to be misinformed, and they're not going to understand that their voting rights would be restored without the 2-year waiting period. So we also have, I mentioned before that we have some funding to organize around this issue. One of the things that we've done is we've hired, we have some funding to hire some organizers. So we started a fellowship program, and we have four fellows. And for the past several months, they've been making phone calls into areas, neighborhoods in Omaha and Lincoln and Greater Nebraska that are disproportionately affected by this law, and just trying to raise awareness with the public and getting people, just asking people basic questions like, are you aware of this law that requires people to wait 2 years with felony convictions after they're off paper before they can vote? And if you are aware of it, would you support legislation to remove that 2-year waiting period? And if you'll support it, then will you take the next step and support us in our efforts to get this law changed?
Yeah. Let's I'd like to take a step back, I guess. So you are out there, in the community talking to folks. Do you have an estimate of how many people it is affecting currently in Nebraska?
Yeah, there was a report put out last year. Actually, it was 2 years ago, and that's the latest data that we have. This report was published by the Sentencing Project, and it showed that there were 22,346 people in Nebraska that are affected by this law. And I can also tell you that almost 50% of that number are people of color, either African Americans or Latinx Americans as well.
Right. So I know you were talking a little bit more about how, like, so if people care about this, which they should, how can people get involved with getting this passed?
Well, actually, at the state legislature, we got a date. We've been waiting for a while to get a date for the hearing. LB20 was assigned to the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee, again, chaired by Senator Brewer. And so the hearing for that is Wednesday, February 22nd at 1:30 p.m. in room 1507 at the state Capitol. And that is a time where the second house, which is us, can go and make their voice heard to this committee, and urge them. And I know some people have personal stories, have been, if they're justice impacted, they have personal stories about themselves. Some people might have family members or someone they know that's been affected by this law. And so we just encourage people as much as possible, if they are able to get down to the state capitol for a hearing and testify in person, that would be great. Another tool as well is the online comment tab that the state legislature has now. You can make sure that your voice gets included in the public record online. You just go to and it's really easy to navigate at the Nebraska legislature.gov website, and you just look up LB20. There will be a tab there where you can click on the tab and just follow the prompts, fill in just some basic information, and make sure you click the box that says you would like to have your testimony included in the public record. And then I think they give you like maybe 500 words to express yourself. And so that's another great way. Another thing that we're encouraging our volunteers and people to do is write into the public pulse, letters to the editor. I know we have out in Greater Nebraska, our organizer Nathan has some volunteers that he's got out there, and we're having letters to the editor or the public pulse published in the North Platte newspaper, the North Platte Telegraph, and the Kearney Hub. They're going to get opinion pieces and op-eds and LTEs as well. And so those are just some of the ways that we as citizens can make sure that our voice and our opinions are heard.
Right. And, we can also include the link with our YouTube video as well, on how to get to that online comment tab. And for testimony, I know you were talking about like sharing personal stories, inviting people to share their personal stories. Can you, I guess, walk us a little bit through what that testimony process looks like? I've done it, and it's a lot less intimidating than what it looks like, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I agree. I've done it too. And yeah, I mean, the first time, just like anything else, if you've never done it before, it can seem a little like it might be a little intimidating or daunting or anything, but it really isn't. Yeah, so the in-person testimony process, if you're hearing for a bill that you want to support or oppose, is at 1:30. You want to get down to the state capitol, give yourself plenty of time to park. That's always an adventure, trying to park for one of those things at the state capitol. But yeah, give yourself plenty of time. Maybe plan on getting to the into the Capitol inside by the hearing room, maybe 15 to 30 minutes before the hearing is scheduled to start. And depending on what bill it is, there may be a line that forms. So there'll be people there that work at the state capitol, and their job is to make sure that the folks that are waiting in the hallway are organized and everything. So basically you just wait until they open the doors for the hearing, usually maybe 15 minutes or so before. You sign, once you get in there, before you can testify, you have to fill out a little, it's a green piece of paper. It's just got your basic information on it, like your name, I think maybe your address, maybe what legislative district that you live in, just basic things. And then you hang on to that until you come up in the queue and it's your turn to testify. And then you hand them your letter or your green form. There's a table or a desk there, and then like a semicircle where the committee members sit. And then yeah, you basically, usually it's a 3 minute, sometimes 5 minutes, but depending if there's a lot of people there to testify, sometimes they'll limit it to 3 minutes. And there's a little box there on the table, and I think the they'll give you a green light on the little box. There's a red, yellow, and red light, and you get, I think, 2 minutes for a green light, and then when you have 30 seconds left, the yellow light will go on, and then when you reach the 3-minute mark, the red light will come on. And really, when you're in front of the one thing too, I should also point out is before you start giving your testimony, they'll ask you to say your name and then spell your name. So it can be, and I think they have you spell your name because there's a court reporter there, basically, or a stenographer, and they want to have you spell your name so it can be in the public record. They have the correct spelling of your name. But really, it's just relax, and I like to have what I'm going to say written out, and that way I don't forget to say anything. But those senators, they're really there, and then they understand that their job at that point is to listen and to hear your testimony and what you have to say. And then after you're done, it's not uncommon for them to have maybe a couple questions for you. If there's something in your testimony, that they would like to maybe dive into a little bit deeper, they will keep you around for a bit and ask you questions.
Yeah. I think it's just important to go a little bit through the basics of what that looks like for people who are interested on being there that day. And one of my things that I think we need to get into a little bit more is, so what happens if it does pass? So there's the day happening on, you said it was February 20, sorry, what was the day?
The hearing's on February 22nd.
22nd, thank
Wednesday,
you.
yeah.
Right. So what happens after that day?
Well, at some point after the hearing, the Government and Military and Veterans Affairs Committee will they'll look at the bill, and they will go through it again with a fine-tooth comb, and then they at some point they'll vote on it, and they'll either vote to they can either vote to advance it to the next round, which would be to the floor of the state legislature, or they can advance, or they could if there's a majority of the committee opposes it, then nothing will happen, and so they can either advance it or they can do nothing at all, really. So then after it advances to the floor, let's hope this time it makes it out of committee. They vote for it, they support it. It goes to the floor, and there it will have to survive 3 rounds of debate. And then after that, the senators, the entire body will vote on it. And if a majority of the senators support it, then it will advance to I'm hazy on this, select file or general file. And then it'll be voted on again. And then from that point, it will go to Governor Pillen's desk if it makes it that far.
Right. So it's important that folks, if you're interested in supporting this, that you do go and, leave an online comment. Like Mike was saying, write in letters to the editor, going to testify on Wednesday. So Mike, we're getting to the end of our time now. I know it's flown.
It went fast.
I know that really flew. But I wanted to ask you, how can people get involved with Civic Nebraska to support this?
It's really simple. You can go to civicnebraska.org. That's one way. And on our website, there's a lot of information. Civic Nebraska isn't just voting rights. We have our youth civic leadership program and also our civic health program. And those are great programs. They do great work. Voting rights is just one piece of the civic engagement that we try and promote through our programs at Civic Nebraska. And so we have our website. If you want more information about the hearing, Civic Nebraska has always also got a Facebook page. So if anybody, does Facebook, there's a lot of information. A lot of the same information on our website would be found on our Facebook page, as well as all the different links to the events and activities that we have coming up in the future.
Right. Is there anything else that you'd like to add about LB20, Mike?
One of the great things that has happened around LB20 and the issue is the coalition of organizations that we started months ago. Like I think it's early in the summer or spring, maybe even. And the coalition that we have, there's I think maybe 30 organizations, nonprofits, and nonprofits basically in the Lincoln, Omaha area, as well as Greater Nebraska. And we just felt like, there's strength in numbers. And so we drafted a letter of support to Senator Wayne right when the day that the legislature convened. I think it was January 2nd or January 3rd was when the legislature convened again. And we drafted a letter of support signed by all of the organizations in our coalition. Basically, the leadership of the coalition is Civic Nebraska, RISE, Common Cause, the Nebraska Civic Engagement Table, the ACLU of Nebraska, Common Cause, Community Justice Center, the Sentencing Project, which is a national organization, and also a shout out to the League of Women Voters of Omaha, Lincoln, Lancaster County, and also Greater Nebraska as well. And that's just a fraction of the organizations that are in this coalition. And so we just come together. We have a monthly meeting. Our steering committee meets. Well, it's been weekly here lately, but we just want to make sure that we're organized and that we're motivated, and that we're going to do whatever we can do to make sure that this bill gets across the finish line this year.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on to GoVote Omaha and joining our program today. Mike Forsythe, for the League of Women Voters of Greater Omaha, I'm Karina Hernandez, reminding you to inform yourself about issues and candidates and be ready to go vote Omaha.